I think when we were having a debate in the previous session, another important aspect, because what we touched upon more was on youth entrepreneurship. I think today an important aspect which Pankaj touched upon, and today we also have a real life example with us in Abhishek, is how do you grow a family business? Family businesses are great. I mean, in India, they have such a huge heritage of being very, very large and successful. But the idea is that if a family business has to become a corporate, how does that transition really come to happen, and how does the family actually make it going? So I think Abhishek's particularly done some wonderful work in terms of building DTDC into a corporate, and we've gone and know from him and how that he's really made that transformation. So Abhishek, I'd like to start with you in terms of telling me where was DTDC when you joined in, and what changes particularly first you brought in DTDC, and then we'll come to more characteristic factors of how you really got there.
Thank you so much, Ritu. Very kind words and then a very nice introduction. You've been far too kind in what you've said. Just to set a little bit of context to most people if they are not aware about our business and our brand, DTDC is one of India's today largest express courier logistics companies. To many of you, it is as recognizable as a franchise outlet on the street. And to many of our corporates, we are a key integral part of their entire supply chain. But probably when we began our journey, and this is in 1990, and we're celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. But when we began in 1990, when our chairman set up the company and founded it, I think it started with a very simple and dream that can we be part of the revolution that India is going to see, where at one point in time where it was either the postal department or dependence on Angadiyas and other kinds of localized courier players, when that was the only way in which one could move their documents and shipments from one point to another, our chairman thought of a simple idea that can we create a pan-India network and run the business. So most of the first 2 decades of our existence, and that is pretty much the time when I joined in, was when we were about completing our 20th year, was built or was spent in clearly building that network. And at the outset, it was very clear the kind of network that we were going to build was going to be a franchise-based network. And yes, we were possibly contrarian in the way we tried going about it, because you would generally not find anybody anywhere in the world setting up an express or a logistics business which is based on channel partners or franchisees. We said that it was born out of a very simple need, the fact that capital was not easily available. And if you had to challenge the best and compete with them and still be able to provide a service across the country, our chairman knew very clearly that it was not going to be possible to do it without the participation of channel partners. So I think the first 20 years was all about growing that network, growing the physical network, the actual operations, the systems, the sales, the processes. But around the time when I was joining the business, I think we were clearly at an inflection point. At that time, I'm talking about 2008, 2009. The courier industry or the logistics industry in India had clearly got few pockets in it. So you had got the really good global players. You had got some excellent Indian players who are right out there, and that's because they also have had a lot of foreign investment being done into the business. And then you had everybody else. So I think when I joined in and had a chance to voice my thoughts or ideas on the board, and of course with our chairman and the rest of the team, I think the first call we all took as a team was that DTDC was going to clearly set itself apart from the rest of the companies that we were competing with at that point in time and set for ourselves a clearly different benchmark. So that's when we started introducing a very new product, which kind of became a talismanic product for us and brought about a lot of growth for us. We call it our Premium Express products. It's nothing but we were the first company in India to actually offer guaranteed day-definite services and actually tell a customer that I'm ready to pay your money back in case I don't meet my time commitment. And yes, that was a bold step, but of course it was a lot of tireless effort, a lot of critical planning, a lot of backbone had to be set up to get that done, and sure, we faced our hiccups when we began. But once that product settled down, I think it truly revolutionized the way customers perceived us, and most importantly, the way we and our own people perceived ourselves. Sure. So from a zero base today, that's more than 150 crore vertical within DTDC, where we today focus only on providing time-bound, day-definite, guaranteed services. So this was one of the few initial things that we started. And of course, we went about, as we got some success, we introduced a lot of things like E-retailing became a big part of our success story. We were the first ones to take a call and say, in spite of having a well-known brand like DTDC, we will still create a subsidiary brand only focusing on e-commerce sector because this is so important. It requires a different kind of focus. It requires a different kind of energy behind it. And our story of last 1.5 years tells us that it is working out for us. Customers love the fact that we're doing something different for them. So these are just a couple of examples of how, not just me alone. I don't think I can take alone credit for what we've done in the last 5 to 6 years. But surely me, along with a great team that I have ensured that we've been able to bring about some changes in the business and transition from the old to what we are seeing today.
Sure, and you've really become India's favorite logistics company, homegrown, home delivered. So coming to it, as you said that you've also put in a lot of changes in the organization. So bold steps certainly are hard to take when an organization is already existing and you already have a big team who's used to doing things in a certain flavor. And when the young Sayan joins in and wants to bring all that changes in the organization, the restlessness is bound to happen. Right. So how did you overcome it? What did you do to make sure that, the old team was able to take the new changes that were required? And how did that transformation?
I think that's a great question, Ritu, and I'm sure anybody who's in any size of a family business and a second generation wants to join in, it is a challenge for any second generation to face that particular question. I think I did a few simple things, and of course I had the good guidance and support of seniors in the company as well. But I think very early on I was very vocal about the fact that I don't want to get into the business and assume a position of power just by the fact that I am a son of so-and-so and probably I'm related to the parent owner of the company. I think what was most important for me and with the team to understand that I should first establish my credentials as an equal worker with the team, to be a colleague before you can be a boss. And that meant that I spent quite a bit of quality amount of time actually with the people on the shop floor, the people on the sales front, where they're doing deliveries with our channel partners. So I spent a good amount of time actually traveling across the country and meeting from the smallest employee and channel partner to the largest distributor or a customer who is contributing to the success of the organization. It did two things for me. First of all, I don't think I could have got as good a learning or a true understanding in a very shortened time period about what this business is all about. And the second thing was that the people with whom I started working, they realized that I am an equal player, that I am just one amongst many. And it's not that I have to come in and tell you that please follow me because I'm telling you to do so, but rather I'm ready to work with you and set an example and demonstrate to you that this can happen. So I think with that, over a period of time, I really found out that people were really receptive. I don't think people, of course, there would always be people who would think that can this individual succeed? Can he replicate the success that possibly his father or other people have done? But I think once you enter with that kind of an approach, you find people are far more open to share things with you and accept you as a part of the team. So I think that probably worked for me in my experience.
So would you suggest to most family businesses present out here that it's important to work on the grassroots first before you take a position of power, as you've just mentioned?
I think it would be my one single advice that I would give to anybody who's a second generation person joining probably a family business. The grassroots, the shop floor is the place where you get to learn the real tough truth. And once you understand the pains, the challenges and the problems of the people for whom you are expected to provide solutions, it'll make it far easier. Because end of the day, it is given that if you are the one who's supposed to succeed, you will be in a position of power and you will be expected to take decisions.
Sure.
But as a second generation person, you will always have a thought at the back of your mind, am I taking as great a decision as my people or whom I'm succeeding? And the only thing which can give you the confidence to say that yes, I'm doing the right thing is if you know the pulse of the people well. Because then as an individual, you can take the decision which is right. And not just try to replicate someone's thought process. Because you've understood the pains and therefore your solutions are designed to address those pains and problems.
Sure. At this stage, we'll also open the floor for discussions as we continue discussion amongst us. Having said that, Abhishek, that, you're the young one joining the business and it's important to start at the grassroots level. The fact is, you're still the son of the chairman. True. Now, how do you, and that particularly often becomes something hard to digest for the existing older teams who have been there, about the changes that you'll bring or the transformations that you would like to make happen. Now, how do you build an identity for yourself?
Right.
How do you say that, okay, I'm going to be everybody knows you're the next hire, but
Right.
how do you create a definite identity for your own self when you're working in such a large setup?
True. I think, Ritu, two things probably help in doing that. From what I've seen in my own career and life, and indeed some other people whose careers and lives I follow, it is very important that you are willing and in a position to create your own identity. If you're not creating your own identity, you will always be trusted or looked upon as only someone who's a son of somebody or a relative of someone. So I think for me it was very clear that I bring to the table certain skill sets which are probably different or complementary to the skill sets which the generation before me has brought. And therefore, instead of trying to copy what they do well, it is far better to learn what they are doing well, but clearly showcase what I can do in my own space. So for example, if it's about strategic decision making, if it's about ability to analyze technology or look at certain facets of the business which possibly were not looked at before, for example, marketing. Right. These are things in which possibly because of the kind of education that I was fortunate enough to receive, I felt that I could do a much better contribution. So that helped me create a niche for myself. That it was very clear at the start, within the first couple of years, that I am good at certain things, which possibly need not be the same things at which my predecessor is good at. And the second thing is, if you're the son of a person who already casts a large shadow in an organization because of he's the founder and he's the personality who's created the business, people who are there in the organization look at him as a father figure. Right. You know, they look at him as someone who they follow almost like a son would follow a father. So I think coming in there, you can't say that I too will become a father figure in the organization. I don't think that's a great position to take. But I think there's always another open position, is to be a brother or a friend to the people that exist. And if they can see you as, even though you're a son of XYZ, you are someone I can open up to. You're someone I can be friendly with. You're someone I can possibly share some things which I cannot share with a father figure, simply because we have, as Indians, we have a great degree of respect for someone whom we've idolized for so long. So I probably don't carry that baggage, which means that some of my team members are able to share with me things which possibly they will not be able to share as openly. So that helps me create a space for myself in their hearts. And end of the day, no matter what you do in terms of processes, systems, and no matter how much money you throw at people, if they are not ready to accept you as a good friend or a brother, I don't think they will allow you to lead them. So I think I felt that was the best way to go about it. And from last 5-6 years that I've been in this business, I think it's sort of worked for me. I don't think it's worked against me.
That's fantastic, I think, and that's probably the way out if you're going to be a second generation. Second generation is not that easy to be. It's not so easy to be a part of the business as it's usually named out to be. It's a tough call when you have to manage such a large business, and everybody thinks it's coming to you in a platter, but the platter is also so full that you really don't know where to put your piece into it. So I guess that's certainly wonderful. So if we could have the house lights and we could have some questions regarding the session. I can understand your take in terms of saying that I could be a friend to some of the young people. Now, how do you manage senior people in an organization? There would be let's say a general manager who might be there for about 30 years or 35 years. Now, he's going to not want to become your friend even if you have all the right intentions. Now, how do you get them to understand change?
I think it's a great question you ask, Ritu. By the way, I'll start by saying that today some of my best friends are people who are at least 15 to 20 years older than me. That probably makes me feel sometimes a little older. But I think over a period of time, everybody wants to see whether you mean business or not. Are you just this guy who's trying to come in and say, I've got this X MBA or I've got this XYZ education, so I know more than you? I don't think that works. And I think the first thing which I did, and I can proudly say that, in the last 6 years, I have not had to fire a single person who was there before I joined.
Fantastic.
So for me, I think I knew very clearly, it is not the right way to simply say everybody who's there before me is not competent. Sure, everybody's got shortcomings, everybody's got different levels of talent, but everyone has something in them. Otherwise, they would not have been so good at it for the last 20 years. So I said, let me find out what's really great about this guy. He's 20 years older than me. He's far more experienced. Let me be a student to him and let him coach me and guide me. And once you get the entry in that step, over a period of time, they start realizing that you are not just someone who's out there to shake things for the sake of shaking things. You mean business. Their interest is in my heart. And I think end of the day, they open it up. And today, I don't feel uncomfortable. And I hope they don't feel uncomfortable. but I'm on equal terms or equally friendly with some of them. So going out, probably having a picnic or sharing a meal, visiting each other's homes, inviting each other's families across. I think that's the kind of, so we open up lunch on a table and just call everyone. So he shares what he's had, what his wife has made for him, and probably what my cook has made for me, and we share it and have a good meal on a table. And you realize that over a period of time, that's all that matters. And people are ready to accept you if you are ready to give them a
You
chance.
open up
Yeah.
a lot more. Okay, so what's the future of DTDC according to you? What more changes are you looking to bring in terms of growing the organization?
I think we are fortunate, and I'm particularly very fortunate. When we started the business, we were at about 250 odd crores in turnover. As of last year, we've practically tripled that. But that has set us up very well for some big things to come. So I think the economy, the industry, the market is changing at a very rapid pace. And the success of DTDC as an organization in the future is going to depend on how well we adapt to that change. And how will we make our associates, our partners, our employees adapt to that change. And essentially, even though we are 25 years old, we like to believe we are 25 years young. And
Right.
think like a 25-year young boy who's full of hope, full of energy, full of enthusiasm, and ready to grab the opportunities. So today, my generation or the people who are going to be working with me are not going to fight for survival. They're not going to have a hand-to-mouth existence where possibly, you're not sure whether you're going to see the next year's balance sheet come out or not. But we have a different challenge. We have a different exciting opportunity ahead of us. So I think this next 25 years, the way I like to look at this journey, is going to be all about grabbing those opportunities, bringing change, bringing technology, and essentially transforming this business to a truly Indian multinational corporation, because that is our dream. And I would just end probably this part with one thought that, in a sense, whether it's a family business or a corporate, everybody ultimately dreams of one thing: build something which is a legacy. So even the largest corporations in the world have always built something which can be a great legacy. And I think every generation strives to do it. And I'm quite hopeful that 25 years down the line, I may not be a shareholder or a promoter or a director in this company. But I'm sure I'll have people who will take it as their company and want to see a legacy going forward. And as long as that is there, DTDC's future, DTDC will always remain a family business. No matter who's the owner or who's the director, it will always remain a family business.
That's the way it should be. So thank you so much for sharing those thoughts with us, Abhishek. That is the way a family business would need to grow forward. Ultimately, whosoever operates it doesn't matter. It has to be family doing it on the top.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for this, and thank you for actually joining the dais with us and sharing some wonderful thoughts. So I'd like to thank you. And Kavya, I'll just hand it over to you from here.